You're listening to The Bounding Box, where we talk about web development, geo development, and everything in between.
All right, welcome to the Bounding Box. All right, today I got a great guest here. I have Kitty Hurley. Kitty, please introduce yourself. Tell us who you are, what you do. What's your problem?
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Renee. It's really good to be here and yeah, just excited to chat. I'm Kitty Hurley. I'm a product engineer on the Calcite design system team. Every day is a little bit different for me. So I go all the way from project management, working through solutions with like colleagues, with customers even, conversations around accessibility, building tutorials and apps, presentations, technical blog posts, and some other stuff that just kind of pops up. So what my problem is, just trying to make the world a better place. I don't know if I can make it that simple, but that's the end goal for me.
No, that's major, right? I mean, that's kind of like, it goes into our work, right? And especially the stuff that we work on is used by so many people and everything. And yeah, right. Just try and make it easier for people to do their jobs and make it better for them. So yeah, that helps.
Awesome.
You mentioned accessibility, and I think that's a topic that's actually pretty big at Esri. Where we both work, but it comes up quite a bit, and I think a lot of developers out there, it's like that really. Um, I mean, especially if you're a junior developer, it might not be the first thing on your plate, right? But definitely when you're building apps by a wider use, it's definitely something major. Can you just give us a little bit about what accessibility is and why it's important?
Yeah, definitely. And it's interesting that you say that too. Like it might not be necessarily something that somebody who's maybe like new to like web development really thinks about accessibility, but it's something that you just go a little ways and it can go really long ways as far as what that end user is then able to access the information. And so accessibility on kind of like a very like foundational level is just making a solution or a product that's just more usable by more people. So, like a lot of times when we talk about accessibility, we're talking about specific audiences, like maybe somebody who's using a screen reader is blind, but that's not the only user. It can go from wide array of just changing a font, and that really helps somebody who is dyslexic. And again, that's just a small thing that can be done to then accommodate a larger audience. So that's just kind of like the audience that we're talking about. And as far as like what that means, it's really just trying to think of, what can make this product better for more audiences. So in maps, a lot of times people think of like color contrast or the color that's being depicted on their solution. And just thinking about that can really go a long way. So just building those building blocks and doing it across whatever solution that you're providing and really going what is the purpose that you're trying to deliver and making sure that that purpose is considering a larger amount of audiences. And so it's a really hard question, but at the same time, it's a really fun problem. And hopefully it makes more innovative solutions as a result. So it can be a really fun question for folks to try and answer.
And with Calcite, it's I mean Calcite has accessibility built into it. So if using Calcite components, you're like 90% there, right? For what you want to do.
Yeah, I mean it's hard to put a number on it. I hope that that's where Calcite is at for sure. It's something that the Calcite team is really focused on, and I know it's starting to go into other products as well that the Esri provides. But yeah, the hopefully it makes it easier for folks that are using Calcite, that are using Maps SDK in their solutions. So dashboards has a lot of really great options, story maps, hub even. So just going across the products, a lot of the teams have focus on incorporating accessibility. So, as a customer of Esri, you wouldn't have to think as much about it, but it is still important as somebody who's leveraging those solutions, the products, that you still have to do a little bit more to just ensure that accessibility is still being carried out, such as, just making sure that somebody can keyboard in through that solution and it makes logical sense. Or yeah, we were talking about map colors, just making sure that the maps that are being displayed are depicting the colors that can be discerned from somebody that maybe has low vision impact. So it's just a couple additionals that folks need to consider when they're building solutions.
Nice. Give us a quick rundown of what Calcite is for people that may not be familiar. Keep mentioning it over and over again, and people are probably, "What are you talking about?"
For sure. Yeah, so Calcite is it's a design system. So we use it across Esri products as well. So you might be familiar with it already without understanding what it is, but it helps create beautiful, easy to use, cohesive experiences across apps. And what's great is it makes it really easy to use, very little effort. So it's what it is exactly is it's a UI kit, it's icons, color schemes, and a web component library comprised of UI elements. So people that have heard the great news that the ArcGIS components are now out of beta in production, it's also a web component library. So Calcite is also web component library. And it's used across, as I mentioned, across our product teams, also by customers. And as of last January 2023, it's now in production as well. So we offer Esri support as well, which is awesome. And yeah, a lot of products are using it. So Hub, dashboards, Map Viewer, Maps SDK for JavaScript, Story Maps. Um, yeah, and yeah, we have a couple new really great, exciting updates as part of this June release. For example, like dashboards is using Calcite really heavily, and we were talking about color contrast. They've created new themes, even allowing folks to kind of customize those themes, and it's all using Calcite on the back end. So nothing you have to think about as a user, but it allows really nice, really beautiful theming that folks can do, and it does color contrast for you. So there's a lot of really great things out of the box. And again, it goes back to like just making sure that accessibility is carried out in the product.
That's cool. Yeah, it's definitely nice to work with, and you already have all the colors defined and everything for me. I don't need to worry about any of that, and it's consistency across everything that we do, right? Which is very cool.
Exactly.
Now you're also the
Awesome.
one that kind of wrangles the Calcite releases and stuff, right? I mean, pretty much keep everything on track and all that. How's it like to manage that? Because I can imagine it can be tricky sometimes.
Yeah, that's a great question. You know, it kind of goes back to, like foundation, right? Everything kind of builds up into this big kind of end goal, right? And so it's just taking one issue at a time, kind of understanding the impact of each of those nil pieces and then building them up. So, like who's impacted by this issue? And if there's a lot of people, maybe we need to escalate that up, make sure that that gets included in a release. And also how long it can take. We're trying to do a better job doing time estimates to just kind of get an idea of the impact versus the time needed. Because sometimes things could be, kind of like a one and done, really easy, get it done. But other times it might include like a team discussion. It could have multiple kind of impacts across design consistency. We haven't really talked about that, but it's, just making sure that there's consistency across the Calcite design system and making it easy so somebody who's using like an accordion, as an example, could have that same kind of use, be able to implement it in the same way for another component. Such as like a card. So kind of having that kind of same back and forth, so you don't have to think about the different properties or attributes and how they differ between the components. But yeah, other things like kind of pop up every now and then too. So, sometimes we get like an Esri support ticket, or we have somebody reach out mentioning that it's a blocker for their release for like another product that we have internally. And so, it's kind of like shifting that priority, then going back again to those individual pieces and then shifting things. And then just communication. That's the big thing too, because things shift, things happen, life happens. And so it's really just trying to be really communicative and then letting folks know whether it's an internal team or it's an external user as well. Because if it's a support ticket, if it's somebody who's reaching out to us, we want to make sure that folks are getting that communication and they're understanding that, yes, their impact matters and we will get to it. It's just, it might come later. And giving that explanation, I think those are kind of the goals that, at least that I kind of have. But that said, we're still new, and so we're learning all the time and adapting. So, yeah, it kind of just changes over time.
And it's like the same thing every time we do any releases. There's going to be patches. Everyone does release is going to have patch. Calcite has a release and say, okay, we're going to have another quick patch coming up pretty soon, folks, just so you know. And if you need it, maybe not. You have to look at what you're using and you might be good, right?
Yeah, I mean, for sure. And sometimes even like, with like a patch, somebody might say, hey, let's like throw this in there. But for us, the goal is stability. So we won't just necessarily throw something in too. So it's still having that stability, but also knowing that we have an opportunity with a patch to address something, but hopefully not introduce something new that could create another
Exactly.
patch. So it's a balance. Again, it goes back to the priorities, I think, is kind of what we've been working towards driving towards.
Now you do have a background in development as well, right? I mean, were a developer before you got to Esri. You still do development today, although I think more of your tasks are probably managerial in a lot of ways. But how has that helped you out to come to Calcite and work on all that?
Yeah, it's a great question. I actually kind of my background is kind of an interesting kind of like GIS kind of background. I think a lot of people can kind of speak to it, going from like an analyst to a developer and then kind of a lead developer role, and then now coming over to Esri in this product engineer role. But yeah, I try and use like my background and my expertise like from previous positions every day, really, because Calcite is very like web development, but there's a lot of design behind it too. So trying to put all of those pieces together, kind of understand like how the developer story, how a user interacts with Calcite, and then applying it to what we're aiming to do. Because knowing that impact, and for example, we have breaking changes. What is that impact going to have on the user? And with how many users we have, trying to make it a little bit more of like a change management process of, here's what's coming. This is why it's important for this change, and giving a lot of lead time for that, because people don't necessarily want to do change right away. Change can be very hard for people, especially when we're releasing so often, but having some kind of communication really helps along the way. But yeah, as far as the development background, it's just to kind of understand like where that person's coming from, where the user's coming from, whether they're internal or external, and trying to make it easier for them. Because that's the bottom line. We want to make a really great product that works really well for them.
Yeah. And I see that a lot. And I went through like the same path, right? You start off as like a tech analyst, and you go on to developer and stuff like that. And I think there's a lot of people, especially in um, government agencies, so whether it's local or state, federal level, they go through the same thing, right? They start off doing tech work and end up being a developer out of necessity most of the time because no one else will do it.
That's very true.
That's a lot of fun though. I really dig it. I have a lot of sympathy, a special place in my heart for those folks that come up that path, right? Because it's not easy.
Definitely. I think it's a very common path. At least I've seen it a lot in my career too, that it just, yeah, it kind of happens. They're like, oh, this person's really good at doing the analysis. Let's see how they do, if they can like do some more magic with it and do some more inventive things behind the scenes to make it easier for us. It seems like a very common path.
Now I'm not too sure. Is the calcite design system, like the actual like colors and things like that, used in desktop products like in Pro, stuff like that? Are you
Mm.
using pieces of that anywhere?
That's a great question. That is coming hopefully in the future. We're doing some stuff behind the scenes that we're hoping to announce later this year,
Okay.
and with that should make it easier for doing it beyond the web. So more very soon on that
Oh,
front.
that's gonna be exciting. That's cool.
Yeah, definitely. We're excited about it.
Nice. What has been the most how to say it, the most exciting thing you've been able to work on since you got to Esri? Has there been
Oh my
like one
gosh.
thing that just kind of like you're really proud to get out there that was tough?
That's a really good question. I want to say like everything that the Calcite team has delivered has just been phenomenal. It's been great to, go from a beta product to production release. I think that was a huge accomplishment for the team. Um, just in general, accessibility has been really fun to start integrating into products. One of the things I'm really proud of, I didn't actually like help with the coding, but I helped with the testing on, was in the 4.3.0 release of Maps SDK, just out this month. There's a go-to animation that was added. So if like somebody has reduced animation set on their machine, their operating system, then it'll put that into effect so there won't be animations in place. But if animations are turned on the operating system, then you'll see those animations. There's also capabilities that developers can, always require animations, but I think that was a really successful project and is going to be really helpful for developers and for more users, because it was kind of hard to be able to see animations for some folks. And so being able to accommodate more users has been really awesome. And that's just like one example. There's so many accessibility ones, but I think that one's just really exciting because it's new.
Yeah, the reduced motion one's neat because I don't have the problem with it, but I do know a couple people that have told me that just the animation, especially like in 3D, can be kind of jarring when they look at it, like the default animation, I guess, when you do go to, and I don't see. I don't get. I guess I don't get motion sickness, but people that I guess are susceptible to it, it can be kind of a bit like, oh, whoa, that was kind of weird, right? So it's really cool to see that.
Yeah, exactly. And again, it's just doing one small thing that goes a really long way for a larger number of people, but you're not taking it away from somebody who maybe doesn't care about that. They want to see that animation. So it's just adding more functionality to more users.
That's cool. Now, do you know if that's going to impact any other parts? I'm trying to think of any other animations that might be in place in the API, but I guess most of them is things you have to enable as a developer, right? Like if you do like a 3D, like the water animations effects, stuff like that. I guess you have to
Mm.
turn that on, but I don't know. It'd be interesting if that kind of carried over in other places where we don't override people's settings and stuff. That'd be kind of cool too.
Yeah, for sure. And just for context too, this is only related to 2D for this release.
Yeah.
But I think that there's talks of potentially considering that for 3D depending on how things go. But yeah, I think that's a really hard question to answer. It goes back to, what is the best solution, not just for like that app specifically, but for all apps, and what should be the default, and what can developers then further customize? And it's a really hard question. So yeah, just having, I think, the capability for developers to then go in and they can require animation all the time if it's needed for the app, because that goes back to the WCAG or the web accessibility content guidelines, is making sure that the animation is needed. And if it's not, then that's when you have the option to have it be paused or not present. So yeah, I think it's again, it's a fun kind of like question to start asking. That's why I find it so exhilarating to work with.
Oh man, that is cool. And then for context, so many people know. I mean, you've been at Esri since what, 2022, right? And you have,
Yes.
I mean, the amount of work that you've accomplished since you've been at Esri has been a lot because it
Oh,
went
thanks, Renee.
because the seriously like the calcite stuff and everything like that went to, like you said, it got out of beta. The actual like repo itself went to like a mono repo structure where they put everything into one spot and stuff like that, which came out really cool. And it's to the whole team and everything in general. But since you came on, I'm not sure how much you had to play in it, but you definitely have gotten like communication wise in terms of what's happening for Calcite. So internally, we get those emails and stuff about what's coming in Calcite, what's coming in the release. You have what the office hours for the internal Esri teams and stuff. They can just ask random questions like that. It's been really huge, and it's been a big help to all the app teams internally too.
Well, I appreciate that. And yeah, I can't take all the credit. My team is amazing. So, I'm just one person on a very, very intelligent and really great team. So, definitely it's an accomplishment for the team. So, yeah, it's been a fun ride is the bottom line, but we're constantly, learning and adapting to kind of fit the needs of not just internal teams, but also customers. And I think that's why it's so exciting. And I know Maps SDK is pretty similar in that respect, that there's internal needs, but then there's also customer needs too, and trying to find that balance, but making sure that the solution that's being provided is a really like fun one for folks to take advantage of.
Nice. Awesome. All right, Katie, well, I don't want to take too much of your time here, but if you got any tips, tricks, or any advice you want to drop to people at all, it doesn't even have to be GIS related or anything. What do you got?
Awesome. I got 3 things.
All right.
So the first, because we've been talking about accessibility, but it's just thinking about more audiences and solutions. So thinking of something, even if it seems or feels small, that it can have a really huge impact. So an example could be, adding a heading element to your app. So then assistive technologies can then navigate through the app. So a lot of people, that's the number one thing that was revealed in a WebAIM survey that came out in December of 2023, was that people navigate using screen readers, using heading elements. So it's a really great thing for people to consider, and it can go a really long way to help more audiences. And number 2 is it's okay to tinker and fail. It's a hard reality to know that you failed, but failure is an opportunity to improve. So it's just embracing it and being okay with failure, because if we don't try, then what are we doing is really the bottom line.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I'm probably failing at something every day, but it's okay.
Exactly, because if you're not failing, then we're not trying to solve a hard problem. Easy problems usually, are they really having the same bang for the buck? So it's just going for those hard problems and being okay with failure, and it's something to embrace for sure. And then number 3 is to embrace technology and change into your work. So thinking about AI, coming into the impact in our daily lives, and how can you embrace it professionally, but also considering any biases that might be influenced as a result of that. So thinking about all those new technologies, but also going back to your old ways and kind of combining the two together to kind of create a future that works.
Nice. That's
But
great advice. I
thanks.
just used Chat GPT today, and the only time I really use it is when I need regex help. Anytime I do anything with regex, I don't want to bother look it up. I don't want to mess around with the online kind of testers. Just ask ChatGPT and give me an answer, because I don't have time anymore, right? But
That's a great
it's
tip.
great.
That's a great tip. Regex is like I can't even go there anymore. It just drives me nuts. So
Yeah.
that's a really great tip. I'll have to take advantage of that.
Oh, awesome. Okay, well, thank you very much. I'll be talking to you next time.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Renee.
Thank you for listening to the Bounding Blocks today. Please subscribe for more content.